been a really busy week for me. Not only do we have classes abounding and all that, I had the opportunity to have some really intense interaction with a dentist. And I've been trying to work that into my metaphysics, thinking, how does this actually work together with this? And I gave up on it, but you'll hear more about it later. You know, we say often that there is nothing but good. And what we mean by that is there is nothing but God, or spirit, or universe, or whatever term you want to use for that thing back of life, that intelligence that created all of this. You know, and I think there's some intelligence to it, because the deeper we look into it, the more we find things that are just intelligent. I mean, there's some really simple ones, like, you know, evolution did not design us with our noses sticking up because we would have drowned. There's some intelligence in this, you know, all the way back. And what we like to talk about is that there's this allness back of everything that is what we call God or spirit, and that is permeating everything, and it is not in contradiction to itself. It's the infinite life that is unfolding through each and every one of us. So how come it gets so screwed up sometimes? How come it can seem like things are just terrible? Now, in New Thought, we teach that our life is an outpicturing, or an experience, if you will, of what our thoughts are. Not every single thought, because can you imagine in this room if everybody's thought in this very instant were to be here? That would be a scary place. Just too many things going on. It's the tendency of our thinking. What we tend to think about all the time has a tendency to show up in our experience. And what we have found is through directing our thinking clearly and concisely and consistently towards an objective, we find, A, that we start to act in a manner that is in alignment with that objective. And B, things that we can't seem to explain start appearing in our lives, like opportunities and people who can support that objective. Right? And that's where the power of this oneness is we're drawing that to us. Everybody here aware of the law of attraction? Yeah? I got a lot of head nodding out there for those people watching the video. That's what that is we get to a level where we believe something in our soul, and it says, okay, I'm going to radiate all the stuff I need into this experience so it comes along. And we still got footwork to do. That's the nature of life. And you can sit on your purple pillow, and I'm going to say without a doubt and without any hesitation that you can manifest things into your life instantly as soon as you achieve transcendence. Right? The rest of us have to do a little work with it. But if you are sitting there and you are already transcendent, you are living one with the one, you can manifest anything in your life immediately. The rest of us, and I include myself in that very clearly, have a bunch of thoughts rolling around in our head, which may be working in opposition to the good that we are trying to experience. Anybody got that problem? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This morning? In the last 5 minutes? I mean, I'm not immune to this. I spend a lot of time working, and the reading talked about that, the yoga, the meditation, the breathing exercises, the affirmations. I spend a lot of time trying to train my thinking into a positive channel so that I experience these good things in my life, and yet I can still wake up and just be right down that line of negativity. And it doesn't matter what about. Until I get wake enough that I can say, wait a minute, I know that if I want to experience a good day, I need to change my thinking and start thinking positive things. So I do stuff like this. You know, I'll meditate. That helps usually. Sometimes it just gets my checkbook done. You know, other times it just reinforces the negative thinking because I'm sitting there quiet and the tape is running so fast I can't seem to erase it. Right? And sometimes it just eliminates that into that place of peace. And then I do some prayer work, and that helps do that too. That's a logical motion and thought on an intellectual level that's bringing the emotion to it that actually gets my thinking back into a positive line. Everybody has the opportunity to do this. So we're getting ready to start the radical forgiveness class. Didn't think he was going to get away without me talking about this a little bit. What I like to think of this time when we change our attitude is kind of a palate cleansing. Anybody here really into food? Right? You know, when you're having a big, fancy meal, they have interjecting courses that cleanse the palate so that you can taste the newness. Right? Whether it's a wine, I don't particularly volunteer that one, it's not my bag, or a sorbet or something like that that clears out the last taste and brings in the new taste. And so what are the things mentally that we are trying to clear out? Resentment, anger, negativity, right? Judgment. These are the things which leave us with those feelings that, and the negative thoughts that we have that continue the tape going and start to make our day be one of those things that I don't really want to experience regularly. Has anybody had that kind of experience? So you wake up and you're angry at the person who did something 2 weeks ago, right? They've moved on and you're still sitting there. And boy, have they rented a room in your head, right? They're sitting in my head. I'm going to personalize that. In my head, when I'm angry at somebody, they can rent a space in my head, and every time that they want to get back at me, they just put a neon light in the window of that space, and it blinks and draws me into the room. You know, that's how my head works. Sorry, guys. Hate to tell you that. But it's the truth. That's how my head works. You know, like so. And then I will go back into that room of resentment, and I will relive the thing that happened to me, the condition that happened, the thing that got me all angry and resentful in the first place. And I will get to re-experience all the emotion. And you know what the funny thing is I'm not even remembering it correctly. I know this. I know this because my mind, in all its glory and imaginativeness, has actually created an even bigger issue than it was before, because that supports my story. That supports my hurt and my willingness to continue to be hurt by the same incident that happened before. So how does one cleanse one's palate of that? I'm going to ask this. You don't have to answer this. Please don't. Anybody got any resentments? Yeah. You know? Anybody got any residual anger over something that happened in the last 20 years? Okay. So we all have issues. And there are ways that we can work on this, but, and I said this a few weeks ago, and it's really been deepening into my soul. The head, the mind, cannot heal what the heart will not allow. So I can jump up and down in my head and say, life is good, I am free of resentment, I am happy, I am working towards my positive creativity. And if my heart is saying, that SOB did this to me, it ain't going to work. It's not going to work. So if we want to create a new life, a new experience in this very moment, what we need to do is to clear out those bubbles of pain, those moments that are stuck in our subconscious mind and that we keep opening the door on so we can experience it again. We really need to clear them out. And one of the most important ways of cleansing the mental palate of this is forgiveness. Now, I've had some horrific things go on in my life. Some at a young age, some later. I'm not going to get into details on that. If you're interested, catch up with me later. You'll probably, if you stay for the class, you'll probably hear some of it.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Nothing new for you. And for many, many years, I embellished the stories of those pain and reinforced my story of the pain that went on with them. Until I started to look at somebody pointed out to me along the way, what are you getting out of that? That happened 20 years ago. What are you getting out of it? I get a story out of it. I get to collect people to my judgment point of view that was a horrible thing. Anybody ever stay in bed to be sick so that they could get cared for? Okay, so this is kind of a soul sickness. We're staying in bed with whatever it is that we haven't forgiven so that we can get all that wonderful loving kindness and care from our fellow human beings when they hear our tragic story. And in fact, that's a really nice place to be cared for, to have somebody sympathize with the horrendous thing that went on for you. But there's another side of it. The other side of it is we are each souls embodied in a physical form. That soul part of us has never, ever been hurt. That soul part of us is the part of us that is perfect, whole, and complete and has always been. It is our connection with that divine, infinite source of love and creativity and wisdom and intelligence and abundance and all the good things that we call God. That part has never been hurt. And in fact, that is the part of us which impels us to grow spiritually. That's the part that brought you here to hear whatever I'm saying today, whatever part of it either irritates you or resonates with you or motivates you or gets you to run screaming from the room, was exactly what your soul needed to hear today to continue your evolutionary process back to an awareness of your divine nature. That's not always comfortable. My experience has been, in fact, that to clear away the pain of past endeavors and experiences, that often I need to go back and relive it and then let it go, to get rid of the charge that went with it. That's one way to do it. Some call that psychotherapy. If you do it in the Freudian trend, it can take upwards of 7 years just to figure out what it was that got you pissed off in the first place. That's one method. Anybody's into it, go for it. There's another method, which is just to turn away from that pain and start focusing on what it is that we do want instead. Well, this is a good method too. It's one that we purport to teach in practical prayer. And it is a great method, but it often doesn't get into the root cause of what the belief structure is that's holding on to that little bit of pain. Unless you're willing to really spend time believing what it is you're praying about. See, in our system, prayers aren't beseeching something to happen from outside of us. It's coming to the awareness that there is a whole and complete, perfect spiritual being at the nature of myself and in each one of us. And what we are doing to clear the palate is to remove all of the stuff that is not in alignment with that truth. That's not an easy job. Ask our practitioner students. It's not an easy job to continue to move into that awareness of each one's divine nature, our own to begin with and everyone else's from there. But it's absolutely worthwhile. That's two methods. Another method is radical forgiveness, which actually is a changing of perspective, which is another thing we talk about. It's just changing our perspective about what happened. And the very essence of it is, and it's real simple, is that your soul got together with another soul so that you could grow spiritually. And whatever happened between those two souls, it was exactly what you needed to grow spiritually. And we can all go out into the world and say, you know what? I don't believe that because look at this crap. Right? I didn't say it was easy. My belief is that's true. That absolutely everything we experience in life, we had a part in. There are no victims in soul development. There are victims in our society. There are victims in our community. There are victims in our consciousness. But in the soul level, there are no victims. We're all here by divine appointment. We are all here to experience what we are experiencing and to be able to choose to experience something else and to develop back to our awareness of our divine nature. Stick around this afternoon. It's really eye-opening stuff. So once we get through forgiveness, guess what happens? Automatically, there is this sense of gratitude. So we've relieved ourselves of the charge of whatever that was. We've let go of the story. Doesn't necessarily condone what happens in our lives, but it does take the spiritual charge out of what happens to us. And then we can move forward and look at that. And my best guess at what I'm supposed to learn from all these are, don't do that to somebody else. Because I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, and this is my confessional mode because I had teeth pulled. You know, is that I have found myself doing the exact same things that happened to me, perhaps in a lesser degree, but the same intention that happened to me. And it was my response that I hadn't let go of that story. I hadn't learned the spiritual truth that what I needed to do was let go of that and stop doing it to become a more spiritually aware, deepened consciousness on this planet that is an expression and a channel of love. I'm working on highways. What happens when you let go of that is we move into a state of gratitude, of thanksgiving for the life. And if you do this forgiveness work to a level that is deep and meaningful, you will even come to the place of thanking the person for whom you had the resentment, for being your spiritual teacher, for agreeing to accept all of the pain that came with that situation from their end as well. Because ultimately we are all expressions of this divine idea. All of us are expressions of this divine idea. And that's a huge spiritual truth to swallow. Because I like pointing around and saying, everybody but them. But that's not true. That's just my mind telling me that I need to be better than. That I need to be superior to something or someone. And the truth is, I don't need to be superior. I just need to be me. And that's true of all of us. We just need to be who we are. Because each one of us is a unique combination of experiences, of love, of perceptions, of creativity that is here to be us. That divine spark is in each one of us expressing in a unique and wonderful way. And when we can clear our mental palette of the negativity we've accepted into our consciousness, of the bitterness that we relive in our memory life, we can move forward towards love. That agape love of, I love this life. This life is a precious gift. And every interaction that we have with someone is a divine communion if we allow it to be. And it doesn't matter whether that interaction is charged and difficult or warm and fuzzy. It is still a divine interaction bringing us along the path towards the realization of who we are. Not who we can be, who we already are. That's the beauty that comes about when we go through the forgiveness process, come into a state of gratitude, and understand who we are. Because when we understand who we are individually, we can understand who we are collectively. And we can make choices individually that help people make choices collectively. And we can be in a different place. So I invite you, as you go about your week, I'm sorry I didn't get to the teeth story, I'll tell you another time. As you go about your week, to really, truly allow yourself to try and see the divine in everyone that you encounter. And as you see the divine in them, recognize the divine in yourself. It's a beautiful place to be. I invite you to join me on that path. Namaste.